Hello and welcome. You're watching The Mint. I'm Andy Hodges and this is ETN Prime broadcasting to you from our studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. Now, we did part one of our interview with Zimbabwe's Minister of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry, Honorable Mangaliso Ndlovu. We spoke all things tourism. Of course, 24 minutes wasn't enough. And as I did promise you that I will be sitting with the Minister in the weeks to come and we can discuss more in depth some of the issues that are under his ministry's purview. But today, I want to touch on environment and, of course, climate change, which are critical. And in fact, climate change I consider to probably be the greatest threat to humankind the world has ever seen. Don't go away. I'll be right back with Zimbabwe's Minister of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry, Honorable Mangaliso Ndlovu. The Mint. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching The Mint, and this is ETN Prime broadcasting to you from Harare, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's Minister of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry, Honorable Mangaliso Ndlovu. So welcome to The Mint. Minister, we're going to cover a lot of issues. As I said in my opening, your ministry covers so many critical components, and I want to now look at one of those issues or some of them. Let's talk first of all about this ban on ivory. I understand why, of course, in essence of killing a beautiful animal like an elephant, all just for a tooth, if I can call it that, and I understand that. But at the same time, Zimbabwe's always been renowned for strong conservation, strong management of its herds of elephants, and also we made money from the ivory to go back into the communities through things like the wildfire camp project and so forth. I mean, what is your view or the government's view about this ban on ivory? I know there has been some lobbying in the past about trying to release something. Maybe you could give us an update.
Thank you, Andy, and greetings to the viewers. And it's very dangerous to ask me my views on certain things because I'll go all out. First, it's on my side, I don't understand the ban, to be honest. And I've really committed my time to engage in a number of platforms, and I'm happy to say that we have common ground with colleagues in the region. I'll tell you why I don't understand the ban. The ban is supposedly meant to curb poaching. I don't know if there is any evidence from research that has shown the relationship between the two. We banned trade in rhino horn around about 1975. But poaching has continued.
But the rhino herd has gone down.
So I don't know how they link the two. True, in certain jurisdictions, in Kenya, for instance, when they banned, they were able to address poaching big time. But it's not the same for all other jurisdictions. So we cannot use what worked in one country and superimpose it everywhere else. And this is mainly driven by NGOs because they are also well funded. They are able to push their narrative, in the process stifling innovation, in the process stifling any new ideas. And for me, it's been very frustrating.
So the fact is that we have too many elephants. I mean, that's the bottom line, isn't it? Right? There's too many elephants and not enough land to support them.
So that's the frustrating part. Natural attrition will be there. Right. And it's these elephants that are supposed to then support the conservation of the species that remain, that are there. When there were problems of blood diamonds, the Kimberley process was established. And it was through that they've come up with a robust system that monitors clean diamond that you can trade. Imagine if we had that mindset to say we want to have a global system with standards where maybe only the elephants that you can prove died from natural causes are able to be traded. Because this is inheritance. I tell you, countries will protect what they have, what gives them a competitive edge. If the world was thinking the same as they are doing on ivory, people would have banned the trade of weapons today because weapons are targeting human lives. But people are still selling arms because those are industries from powerful nations. So we have stifled innovation because it's been very easy to simply say, you know what, elephants are in Africa. we can easily ban it. So we need a strong and united Africa to break that.
I mean, that takes me to the fact, I mean, irrespective of the ivory ban and your views then, I mean, wildlife conservation is obviously very dear to your ministry. And what have you got in place to ensure wildlife conservation? Because don't forget, this wildlife is not just for us, it's for generations to come and the world in essence.
And it all out, we have done an amazing job in conservation. In fact, we have been very good to our disadvantage. As I see it, our elephant population, as you were saying, is almost double our carrying capacity. And it's already beginning to show. If we're not careful, especially in places like Hwange, we'll begin to lose smaller species because of loss of habitat. It's quite scary, and the situation needs urgent intervention. Almost all our key species are growing in numbers, when in most cases, in most places, they are more and more endangered. In Zimbabwe, they are growing. And it's because we have had direct and deliberate strategies to make sure that we fight poaching, but also we promote conservation from different aspects. It's been very expensive to do that. We have struggled a bit. We have had support from other cooperating partners, but it has always been our goal that our key species have to grow. Our biggest problem as a result has been now the human-wildlife conflict.
That's been a huge issue that we've grappled with for many years. And I mean, I found that with that wildfire or the wild camp, whatever it is, when you do the elephants and the meat goes to the villagers, the ivory goes to the villagers in terms of the proceeds. I mean, that does placate the population, the communities, because there's been rumors of wildlife, too many wildlife encroaching on human habitation.
Yeah, so it's really from different angles. You'll find elephants completely destroying fields, but sadly also we are losing too many lives. Just last year we lost close to 70 people to animal attacks, mainly from crocodiles and elephants. And I can say, Andy, that for the first time in our history, we will be launching before the end of June. We're targeted May, but I think before the end of June, we will be having our first human wildlife relief fund, which we want to, from the initial stages, we'll be targeting, making sure that those who are injured from animal attacks are given adequate care. We'll be able to support that. Any lives lost, we should be able to also support the bereavement processes. And this is all through the guidance of the President, who has said that we need to have tangible interventions on these critical issues. But the strategy going forward really is to say, how can we even use this fund to minimize and continue to reduce conflict encounters?
I suppose the conservation of our wildlife is key. I mean, we can't be losing species overnight. I mean, even in our lifetime alone, we've lost species that we'll never see again, and it's just quite sad. Minister, as I said, I've got the Minister of Environment, Tourism, Hospitality Industry. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but today I'm just going to focus on just a few issues. Minister, I want to get into sustainable renewable energy. I truly believe, well, I know climate change is real. I hope that you do too, because it is real. It's a fact. And of course, we have the sustainable goals created by the United Nations, SDGs. By 2030, we're supposed to meet some of those. And a lot of them are underpinned, of course, by climate change, renewable energy, carbon emissions, which commentators say, of course, are killing our planet. Of course, the argument always goes that it's the West that created the climate problems. They were the ones for hundreds and hundreds of years that have been doing it. We only came on board recently, and we are not even heavily industrialized at that. But putting that aside, we still have to make sure that we can try and fight climate change as Zimbabwe. So possibly go through what measures your ministry and the government, in fact, in its entirety, because this is not just your ministry's responsibility. What are you doing to fight climate change in Zimbabwe, reduce carbon emissions if we have any? And also, we made a commitment of reducing carbon emissions 40% by 2030.
Yeah, and so under the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, all member states are obliged to submit what we call NDCs, nationally determined contributions. What have you determined to contribute towards climate mitigation or reducing emissions, as it were? And we believe that across our sectors, if we implement a raft of measures that we have identified, we should be able to reduce our emissions by 40% from 2015 levels. And we have identified key sectors. This will be through both the absorption or sequestration of carbon that will be emitted, but also improving our efficiencies and reducing our emissions at the same time. It's also important to highlight that we as a country are still a net sink. We believe that we are absorbing more than we are emitting. So when people are talking of net zero emissions, we're already on the negative.
we're minus.
We are absorbing carbon on behalf of this world. But we still are a responsible country in the global village. We have identified critical areas. One of them is improving our energy efficiency. So as we lose energy in the distribution aspect from wherever it's generated, be it Kariba or Wange, if it's lost along the way, it means we need to generate more from Wange, for instance, which is fossil-based, coal-based. If we then increase our efficiency or reduce wastage, it means we don't have to generate as much. So it's a very critical component of addressing mitigation. Our tree planting is one critical aspect because trees play a pivotal role. I think I'll talk about this when we are now touching on one aspect which I will highlight on carbon credits. So trees play a pivotal role in climate mitigation, and it's part of what we have submitted among the interventions. The President signed again a pledge on forestry, and we've been doing very well in making sure that we address deforestation, we continue to plant trees. That's a critical intervention. But climate change has been mainstreamed in planning in our country. Now all ministries have been urged by Treasury to make sure that even in their annual budgets, they mainstream planning. They mainstream climate change in their planning. We have also capacitated what we call PDCs, Provincial Development Committees. We have trained them. We have partnered with all state universities to continue capacitating them because they come up with provincial plans for their provinces. Then in there, they're incorporating climate change issues. Some of them, we know, simple things like settlement. When you are planning settlement, you need to make sure that we are settling people in areas that are climate resilient, that are not exposing them to climate change extreme events, So if this is part of the planning, we are able to save lives, we are able to have programs that are aimed at addressing climate change.
This is why I say that, even though your ministry may be at the forefront of this is a multi-ministerial government approach because, of course, we talk renewable energy that may fall under the Ministry of Energy. However, renewable energy, of course, is directly linked to the climate. Now, I want to move on to advantages and also looking at as you said, carbon credits because, okay, as sad as it sounds, there are advantages that we can take from climate change as a country and benefit from it. And carbon credits could be one way of doing that. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm a former teacher. I like teaching a bit. Allow me for just half a second lecture so that people can understand this carbon credit thing.
Please do. In fact, I need you to be simple because
I'll
people
try
don't understand.
and put it in English. When my officials speak, you see they're talking to themselves. So what happens, Andy, is that as you were saying, that we have the big nations that contributed to the climate crisis we face. What happens is we have said climate change has no boundary. What they did is affecting us here. So it tells you we have no boundaries. We have an opportunity. I'll just focus on the forestry side, but it really cuts across. The opportunity is that we have the forests here, and we can use these forests to contribute towards climate mitigation. How so? The simple science we did Form 1, that we breathe in oxygen that is coming from the trees. We breathe out carbon dioxide that is absorbed by the trees. So trees have capacity to absorb carbon from the atmosphere. As they absorb carbon from the atmosphere, we are able to quantify how much carbon they are absorbing. So you have a company that is in the US or in the UK, BP, for example. In their processing, they know they are emitting so much. Call it 5,000 tons of carbon they are emitting. And you have a forest here in Wange National Park where we have quantified that they are able to absorb 5,000 tons of carbon within the same time. These are collateralized and they become carbon credits. 5,000 carbon credits can then be purchased by BP in UK, and they would have offset their emissions, because that money then comes into supporting the conservation of that forest, its protection from wildfires, as well as the communities who ordinarily would have gone into cut trees. They have to be empowered. So this is the carbon credit, where countries in the developing space especially can benefit from the resources that are, I call it syntax, from what they are doing to destroy the climate. We are trying to mitigate on our side. We should benefit from it.
Of course, the only problem I have with that is that you're not reducing carbon output, are you? You're just balancing it out. That's the problem, isn't it?
So we need to get to a point where we are absorbing more than we are emitting.
Yes,
Of course, there is an argument, and correctly so, to say that it is kind of allowing these emitters to get away with murder, because they will use the money to slow our development and say, you know what, guys, keep your forests. We're happy to, but we need to make sure that we punish them hard. But they also need to commit to say, we need to invest in cleaner technologies. We need to continue to reduce our emissions. That argument should always be part of it.
Are we able to do that right now, though? I mean, are we able to quantify how much carbon these forests can take and then be able to put in place carbon credits? Is that something that we can do today, or is that work in progress?
It's happening. And
it's already happening.
You'll be shocked. There are people with carbon credit portfolios that are into billions. But we have stopped it. In fact, watch out. Anytime this week, there will be an announcement on carbon credit trading framework, which is likely to be approved by Cabinet this week. It's ready, and it's meant to put a structure, because like it or not, regulation always follow innovation. You see what has happened, development that have taken place, and you say, how can I regulate this? How can I make sure I protect communities? How can we make sure that even Treasury can get some resources out of this? So this will be discussed, and we'll be announcing it. We have already some companies. Another example, let me highlight this. Yeah. There is what we call Tsotso stoves.
Okay, yes.
These are, so there are people, quite a number of companies that have gone to communities. So they will give communities, say, 5,000 Tsotso stoves. One household, they give 2. And they then are able to prove that this is wood efficient. If communities would not have been using this and they were using firewood, they would have cut so many trees. Okay. So the opportunity cost of not cutting trees mean that we have been able to save so many hectares. And there are so many people making millions from that.
That's what I'm saying. There's money in this.
There's a lot of money.
Opportunities.
There's a lot of money.
I mean, as much as it's destroying our planet, people are making money.
But now, Truly will be smiling. Tell you what, I was talking to him, and he's already thinking, what checks can I put there?
Minister, I want to talk about money, and it's a magical figure, $100 billion United States dollars. You know the number I'm talking about. This is the number which developed nations have promised developing nations to bridge that climate fight gap. I mean, Minister, from where I sit and talking to experts, I'm sorry, sir, what are your views? I don't think this money is coming. What do you think? Do you think that they're going to put together $100 billion to pay developing countries?
So the danger is that the Conference of Parties tend to be a political platform, and people want to be seen to have said the right things. We don't really sit to interrogate what is being said. The 100 billion, in fact, should have been paid in full by 2025, I think starting in 2020. No, it's supposed to be 100 billion every year.
Every year, yeah.
Yeah, every year from 2020, and nothing has been paid. In fact, you will hear them saying, we paid, I remember when we were in COP26 in Glasgow, they were saying that in the previous year they'd given out around 83 billion. I said, where? So they're now taking the money that they are giving NGOs, any humanitarian aid that they are giving to put there. And we said, no. Yeah. That is your own contribution in your own way. But we need to have climate finances traced to climate mitigation and adaptation. And we were not able to do that. And I must say that COP27 wasn't inspiring either. I remember in one meeting, John Kerry actually was clear to say that money is not coming. We need to look at the private sector. But we said no. But the West, the developed nations, governments benefited from growing their industries, destroying the climate. And we really need that discussion to go forward. It's clear that we are going there to beg them to make this payment. So they don't see it as a responsibility that they need to address climate change by helping countries that are disproportionately affected by their actions there. So they now change the tact and they seem to point towards carbon credits as now the solution towards it. So I think we need to really change tact and make sure that as the global village, we are very firm on these countries. They need to make commitments to reduce emissions and reduce emissions within a very short space.
And the bottom line, of course, is our own companies need to be aware of climate change, need to be aware of how to retool, how to reconfigure their own factories to reduce carbon emissions. I mean, you know, as much as the money isn't coming, we also need to find ways as Zimbabwe to bridge that climate funding gap that exists. Minister, I want to talk about wetlands, and it's been a huge topical discussion. I mean, all through the capital, Harare, and I've been to other centers in Zimbabwe where the same thing is happening. Unplanned developments on wetlands, unauthorized construction. Obviously, that's impacting our water sources. I mean, I know at one point talking to some of your directors, it was an issue for your ministry. I mean, this is an issue and it still continues to be one, and it does have detrimental effect on the environment.
Indeed, and we've been seized with wetlands, I think, for the past 3 years. I must say the progress we have made is massive over the last period. But where is the genesis of the problem? The Environmental Management Act was promulgated, if I'm not mistaken, in 2002. And EMA came into being in 2006-07, thereabout. It brought together about 19 pieces of legislation. But when we did that, we had people who already held title to land. And you know, when you talk of the justice principles, they'll say, which law should apply first? When I bought this land, I had every right to develop. So we've had problems. Some of them have even become court cases in that regard. But that said, there was also, I think, delayed synchronization between local authorities and environmental management, where they continue to issue title in areas that are wetlands. Harare specifically, including Chitungwiza, is built on a wetland and almost entirely. I don't even know what informed the location of Harare here, because this would have been a green belt for agriculture. It would have been a green belt. In fact, someone was telling me that initially this was supposed to be in Mount Hampton, where we are now moving.
Anyway.
Much later. So you'll find that people are holding title to land that is a wetland. And we had really not developed a robust framework for us to manage wetlands. In the last 3 years, we have done a mapping for the whole country that is now gazetted. You can go to the gazette, you will see all the wetlands in the country. We have been able to do that. We have also developed a wetlands policy, which had not been there. With it, the wetlands utilization guidelines.
Yeah, you know, is it freezing or not? Because that's what people are wanting to know. No more building on wetlands because of the downstream effect.
So we have what we call wise usage. Wise usage, where you have got development that has no detrimental effect on the wetlands. Right. You know, I had my team, Emma, going to Rwanda on a tour of what they've been doing. There are restaurants that are no concrete whatsoever, and they are on a wetland, and they are not affecting the ecosystem at all. So we believe that this is the compromise that we will try and encourage those who are holding title, because concrete is a no-no for us in the wetland.
I think that's the point. I mean, it's finding something that keeps the wetlands open and functional, particularly for the water supplies for the capital, Harare in particular, and obviously, you know, the space problem that we have in the city. Minister, I saw this myself with my own eyes, and I want to talk about companies, particularly in Harare, who are just wantonly discharging their waste products into streams, into water sources. Literally, I saw it pouring out. I've seen it with my own eyes. I even saw the water sources bubbling with the chemicals. Yet at the same time, talking to the Environmental Management Agency, I was like, where are you? I mean, surely you cannot be allowing this to happen, because downstream it's poisoning not just us, it's poisoning the environment, it's poisoning the water sources. I mean, what is your ministry's position? I mean, I'm of the opinion, technically, that these companies should suffer the worst penalties possible, but it appears they're getting away with it.
They are getting away with murder, we can say that. And murder indeed, because when you're polluting the environment, downstream it's affecting innocent lives. As I had highlighted, Andy, that the legal framework, from a policy point of view, we believe in what we call the polluter pays principle. And how does the polluter pay? The first port of call is that all these institutions have got a taxing authority, which is the local authority. They pay for waste management, which should be monitored mainly by local authorities. That's why in most cases our penalties go to local authorities, be it waste collection. You know, there is a funny rule that EMA cannot penalize a company for discharging waste which is supposed to go into a municipal system.
Which is what's exactly happening in
That is between the company and the local authority.
Oh, wow.
We can only penalize the local authority. So, well, we are dealing with that.
I was going to say, that's a huge hole, isn't it?
It has allowed this decay that has continued to take place. But what I can say, Andy, is that the penalty system has also been a critical problem for us, because you will go there, you will penalize people, they are happy to pay, it's not deterrent enough, and these are ordinarily prescribed by the Minister of Finance, your level 1 up to level 13, that's how we can, that's the leeway we have. We have now done the revision of our Act. I think it's going to be in Cabinet soon and going through the processes. We have now introduced the civil penalty, because we believe that the penalties should go just beyond these fines.
Yeah, I agree.
People need to see the cost they are imposing on the nation. Andy, just a quick one. You said you looked at water. You know, the role played by wetlands in water purification is massive. Harare needs more than 23 chemicals to process their water, when Mutare needs just 2. What happens is Harare is then pushing the cost to the residents to purify water, when the city could do a lot more to avoid the contamination and pollution of water. If you go to Chivero, it's a nightmare.
In fact, I tried to visit once. So I drove away.
We try to engage them to say, in the long run, if you address pollution issues, you will reduce the cost of doing business in Harare, you will attract investment. They need to see the bigger picture. And we've been very hard on them. We hope that, I think, the civil penalties will help us.
But before I go, Minister, very briefly, and I know it's not a brief question, I'm really talking about the environmental damage caused by small-scale artisanal miners, as well as, of course, large mining houses, because we've had lots of communities now saying that the environment is being degraded by these mining houses, whether artisanal or large, and in fact, the communities aren't benefiting. I mean, where does your ministry stand in terms of that? And unfortunately, we have to be brief, but as I said, we will be talking to the Minister in future programming.
The problems are quite huge. And we have to separate them. With big mines, to be honest, they know the damage to their reputation if their environmental stewardship is in question. So we have not had big problems with big mines. The problems we have with them has been our failure to establish the Environment Fund, which should come through the Environment Levy. It was also poorly structured in the Act, because it says 2% of revenue. That's quite heavy. So in our revised legislation, it's much lower. I think it's around 0.5% or something like that. But when then mines close, there is massive acid mine drainage that continues to affect communities long after the life of a mine. There are a number of mines, your Alaskas of this world, communities continue to suffer. The big one is on small scale. You know, this country has one of the liberal laws on mining. Anyone can go and mine. some now the majority illegally. And how do you monitor that?
Prime Minister, thank you so much for talking to the Mint.
Thanks so much, Amy.
Well, that's it for today's part 2, talking to the Honourable Minister Mangaliso Ndlovu. I'm Andy Hodges. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.